Okay, so phonics, what do I need to know? You are wondering. According to Mrs. B, let's take a closer look. So, two things that you will hear your children talk a lot about when they are learning phonics are the words phonemes and graphemes. What is a phoneme? Well, a phoneme is the smallest unit of sound, and there are approximately 44 in the English language. Even though we've got 26 letters in the alphabet, we can use combinations of those letters to make 44 different sounds or phonemes. And therefore we use phonemes to make words, because those are what we might refer to more commonly as sounds. So what sounds do we use to make words? You might use that term when you're speaking to your children about what sounds do you hear, what sounds do you need to make that word, to spell that word. Graphemes are the written form of a phoneme. So if I always imagine the term graph, I look at a graph, I produce a graph with numbers, etc. So it's written down, it's something that's produced. That can be made up of graphemes that have one letter, so P, for example, all the letters of the alphabet. When we start to combine sounds, so we've got a digraph there of two letters with the S and the H, or the S and the H, making sh when it's together. 3 letters, example TCH or TK, the ch sound, and 4 letters, the OUGH there, making the O sound or UF sound. More information can be found at literacytrust.org and many sources on the internet as well if you wanted to find out any more. Okay, and next we are going to think about digraphs and trigraphs, as I've already mentioned, and they are mentioned in some of my other videos where you can learn how to say the sounds. Digraph is made up of 2 letters to make one sound, so the example we have there is the TH, making the th sound. A trigraph is a grapheme that's made up of 3 letters making one sound, so another example there, the IGH, making the I sound, as in light or flight. A little tip there I always think is a digraph, a DI for 2 and tri for 3. Okay, this time we're going to look at blending. So when your children or your child is starting to read phonemes and putting them together, we call that blending, when they start to put the sounds together to make a word. So oral blending comes first when they hear the phoneme and they say the phoneme to make a word, progressing on to blending there by looking at words and using their knowledge in order to blend and read words that they look at. So not just saying words and making them, but reading them when they can see them. And they're doing that by looking at the grapheme phoneme correspondence, which might be known as GPC. Quite a technical term that you don't need to worry about. It's just essentially it is the grapheme. It's what does the sound that's associated with the grapheme, what does that letter look like, or what does those groups of letters and that sound look like. Now to think about segmenting. So segmenting, as you would imagine, is breaking something down. To orally segment, we're going to hear a word and be able to split it up, and then to segment, moving on from orally and thinking about the GPC again, the grapheme phoneme correspondence, deciding which graphemes or which letters represent the sounds that we hear and being able to write them in the correct order. This is where we then see children starting to learn to spell simple words. Okay, moving on from here, we're going to think about the phases of phonics. So phase 1 starts when that baby is growing inside your tummy and they are listening to sounds through the womb inside. So it's really important from even that age to start talking and making sounds that your children or your baby can hear. As they start to recognise sounds, this is why it's really important, and I can't emphasise enough why it's important to talk to babies. Some people think it doesn't make sense because they can't respond, but they're listening all the time, and as they progress then attend school, nursery, and as they get older, the more sounds they've heard and have been exploited to, the easier they will find it to be able to hear and say sounds as well. So it's really important. Phase 2, we then start to think about introducing sounds that are written in the written form. So phase, that's why there are no sounds for phase 1 because it's all about listening skills. Phase 2 we then start to think about the letter forms, so listening to letter sounds and associating them with different things. One activity that you might find in nurseries very often is that children might be asked to bring an object in that begins with a certain sound, and they might have a letter of the day or a sound of the day. They might have a sound table where they place things on that begin with a particular sound for that week. So they're looking at the letter formation, they're listening to the sound, and they're recognising that sound being used around them. This can all be done at home too. Phase 3, then more sounds or GPCs are introduced. So again, if you watch any of the phase videos, you'll learn how to say these sounds yourselves, and you can see how they're spelled and example words that they're given in. By the end of phase 3, children will have been introduced to all 44 phonemes, so they will have been taught all sounds that fall into the phonics category and that we use for the basis of our reading and writing and spelling. Phase 4, again, there are no specific sounds taught in phase 4, but it's when children start to use their blending and segmenting knowledge to look at and read words and spell words with adjacent consonants. So that's consonants that are placed together in a word. The examples you can see here are truck and help. So the T and the R or the T and the R for tr, uck, and the L and the P or the L and the P at the end of help. So you can hear the H, E, ulp, help. Phase 4 can be quite tricky because it's all about reinforcing what we already know and furthering that knowledge of CVC words that we might hear. Example, cat, k, at, k being a consonant, a being a vowel, and t being a consonant. To move on to CCVC and CVCC, again all technical language, don't need to worry too much about the specifics of it, but there will be further videos of examples of these things. Often children who have speech and language problems start to struggle here, and this is where we then start to see some children that are struggling to keep up with peers moving through to phase 5. Any concerns at all, ever speak to your child's teacher or maybe even speech and language therapist if that's needed to be involved. Phase 5 is often split into 3 parts. This is pretty much teacher knowledge, but just so that you know a bit more about it. So within phase A, over the first few weeks of teaching the phonics course, children will be introduced to split digraphs. There we can see the split A, E, I, O and U or U. Moving on from that, the next few weeks will be spent looking at other graphemes that can be used that sound the same but spelled differently. So example, we've got a ch there, we might have the TCH as well that we saw earlier, and then also emphasising that ch can be used in not just spelled differently, but it can be spelled the same but then pronounced differently in words. So on another slide in another phonics video, you saw the ch sound for cheese, school and chef. Further, the next sort of further stage from that then is looking at the last few weeks. We'll be going into learning that phonemes have more than one spelling. So we can see there the O sound, so O-A or O-A, O-E or E, and the O split sound there, the O and the E. Phase 6, no specific sounds taught here. It is reinforcing previous phases that have been taught and learned, and then it's also moving on to explore spelling rules such as adding suffixes, which is the part of the word that's added at the end of a word, such as ing and ed or ed, and then moving on to progress again through different spelling rules. And at this point your child would be quite fluent in their reading and spelling, or we would hope. Next. So, what do you now know? We know that phonics is like a code. It's letters that make sounds, and sounds make words. Children hear sounds from a very young age. They hear the sounds and they learn to write them and read them, and then they begin to make sense of words. So all of a sudden, I've seen this so often in the years I've taught phonics that sometimes that light bulb goes off, and I've had parents say to me, "Oh, I can't believe it, when we're out in the car they're spotting all the names on the sides of lorries or adverts at the billboards at the side of the road." And it's fascinating and so exciting to see when it just clicks. So Keep working hard with your children at home, because speaking and listening skills are key. Keep talking to them, keep questioning them, keep asking them, playing games, use my videos, look at some of the games and activities that I share as well. Make good use, because it all fits together. Once they've mastered all these sounds, then yes, children should be able to read with fluency, and again, you will just naturally see that as they progress through. So if you've enjoyed the video today and you feel absolutely that you have all the knowledge of phonics now, because knowledge is the bomb, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my videos and the channel. Tell all your friends about it, and if you have any questions, please pop them in the comments or follow my Facebook page.